And we're live with Geliqua Lala Amini. I hope I'm saying that right. She's joining us from Bali, Indonesia. She's traveled across the world. She's opened restaurants. She's been a teacher for 17 years, but for the last 3.5 years, she's been doing sessions with bioresonance and PMF therapy. So she heals people using these devices, helps them with different diseases. She's actually healed herself, cured herself of Lyme disease about 9 years ago. So quite a journey. Really happy to have you. Do you prefer Jaliqua or Lala or something else? Welcome to the show.
Lala's, thank you so much. Lala's easiest. So you can go by Lala if you want.
How you doing today, Lala? How is sunny Bali?
It's good. It's nice and sunny. It's been raining a couple of days in a row, but we're back to sunshine again.
Perfect. Thanks. Hey, so let's just get right into it. So we get into. I know you've traveled across the world and done all sorts of cool things. You were an activist. You're also real quick. We had a brief chat before, and I hope this is okay to share. She is part Kurdish, Russian,
hmm Turkish and Persian.
Turkish, and Persian, and
Yes.
Canadian, and has a Swedish passport.
Confusing, basically.
A lot of different hats, but you do help people in deep ways with the machines and with the work you do. Could you, for the
Mhm.
uninitiated, could you tell us what you do, how you do it, and how you help people?
Okay, so I'm going to try and run through it quickly with all the necessary details. Basically, PEMF therapy stands for pulse electromagnetic frequency therapy or pulse electromagnetic field therapy. The device that I use actually combines both PEMF therapy and bioresonance. Now, for a lot of people that don't know what that is, our health is based off of our cell voltage. So when the cell voltage or the energy in the body drops, then the body becomes susceptible to illness, disease, chronic pain, you name it. The immune system is lowered, everything else is affected. So part of what I do is I always remind people that when they come to me is that you're not coming to me for the device or the therapy to cure anything or heal anything. The concept behind this and why I fell so in love with it is that it empowers the body and it reminds the body of the ability that it has of self-healing, but at an exponential rate. The issue is with today, like the human body is constantly regenerating, it's constantly self-healing, it's also constantly self-regulating. However, when we do have interferences such as high levels of EMF that come off, for example, Wi-Fi, towers, we have things like programmed thoughts, we have everything that kind of interferes with our natural state of being. This takes away from from the body being able to focus on what it needs to focus on, what it is eliminating, what it is, again, regulating when it comes to hormones, and all these other different things that take place in the system. The idea behind this therapy, the reason I love it as much as I do, is that not only does it empower the person back into health, it's, again, actually, in layman's terms, if I can explain. So, for example, if somebody comes to me for, let's say, their liver has been taxed, and if this is the natural frequency of the liver, but if they've been drinking, if they have liver disease, if they have any kind of issues with the liver or any other organ, it's going to be off its natural frequency. So the therapy comes in and creates a resonance. As it amplifies the frequency, it brings the resonance of the liver back to its natural frequency so that when the therapy after a few times drops, we have reprogrammed the cellular memory. Because just like the muscle memory in the body, we also have cellular memory. So once the therapy drops after the first session, it has a tendency to want to go back to its latest cellular memory. Creating a momentum of frequencies is what brings it back to that natural state. So then the therapy is not necessarily needed. My only returning customers are the ones that come back and say it worked so well. I want to try something else, as if like a menu, which is very interesting because it does tell me it has shown me over 3.5 years now of working with this that this is what we can use out of technology to better our health. I'm not a big fan of using devices, of using anything external. I think the human body and nature in itself are absolutely miraculous. We haven't even scratched the surface of how we understand the human body. However, if we are able to use technology to counteract other technologies that are affecting our natural state of being, then I'm all for it.
So, thanks for that explanation and truth. volume is a little. Oh, that's a cool coconut. I know some people are just listening. It's a big coconut he just drank out
Sorry.
of. That's natural
Hydration.
therapy, I guess.
It
Um,
is.
so uh, how does it? How does what is the natural frequency of our cells? And if people wanted like how did you first come across this device and if you could walk us through the a bit more of the science behind that and what is our natural frequency, how does the device get us there, and do we get zapped with a frequency you get that a
No, I
lot,
usually call it like I call it a frequency bath just
right?
because it creates I mean, okay, let's start off by saying that everything has its own electromagnetic frequencies. So everything is electromagnetic frequency. Um, each organ has a different frequency. As a whole, the human body actually aligns itself with the Earth's frequency, which is the Schumann resonance, which on average is at 7.83 hertz. This is why grounding is very beneficial. When we reconnect with the Earth's energy, it realigns us, it recharges us. We're like little tiny batteries. And this is why the mitochondria is considered the cell batteries. Um, if we're unable to recharge the cells, then this is where that weakness in the body comes into play. So there's something called the CAFL list online where a group of, I don't know how many medical professionals, it's a medical website where they have isolated the frequencies of different illnesses, different organs, everything in the system, and it's thousands upon thousands. The device in itself has specific programs where, again, using the liver as an example, instead of stressing the liver into activation by just amplifying the frequency of the liver, like, okay, I should give you a bit more backstory. The original frequency of the liver could be measured in, for example, a healthy child,
Okay,
where there haven't been too many effects on the organ in itself. So when we amplify that, it brings the liver back to that state where it's actually healthiest, and we're activating and targeting cells in the process. Um, I don't recall how did I come across this? Right. So back in 2014, I had Lyme disease and I was 35 kilos. I don't know how much that is in pounds, but it's ridiculously little. And I was on the verge of death and I was writing a goodbye letter to my mom. And I just realized, because I'm okay, I'm very accepting of death. When it's my time, fine, I'll go. But visualizing and imagining my mom's reaction, because I was writing a goodbye letter to her, it kickstarted something in me that just reminded me that I need to at least go out trying. So I adopted a few methods that ended up saving my life, and I've been tested for Lyme ever since, and there hasn't been anything left behind. Because they say when they diagnose you that you either have to live with it or die from it, and that's not the case. There are several people in this world, or not several, there are hundreds, if not thousands, who have actually cured Lyme disease. The methods I chose were just what came to me, and they were a little drastic. So after that, when people heard about it, they're like, please can you give consultations? So I started to give consultations to people, but because the methods I was using were a little extreme for them, they wouldn't go through with the protocol. This created a situation that did not feel well for me because the last thing I wanted to do was take money from people that were sick and not help them. So I stopped consulting people. And then back in 2017, I was in California, Northern California, and uh, I came across a device that was designed specifically with the frequencies of those bacteria that reside in Lyme disease or that are considered to be Lyme disease. And I tested it out on somebody. I had them go to the headquarters because they wouldn't take the protocol and it was too extreme for them again. So I asked them to go in and they went in a very irregular way. It wasn't a proper treatment, but I could see the incredible difference in them. For within 2 months, I think it was once in a while he would go in. Intensive treatments are a little better, of course, because again, when we create a momentum, then the cellular memory doesn't kick back in. We've reprogrammed it to a new cellular memory of health, state of health. Um, I went back to Costa Rica. I was living in Costa Rica at the time. I left Northern California, went back to Costa Rica, and I researched, excuse me, I researched EMF therapy and specific different devices for about a year, year and a half. And then after that, I left my job in Costa Rica. I was working with children at the time and decided that this was going to be my next chapter. So, excuse me, coconut. Um, so then after that, I decided to invest in the device and moved out to Bali because the concept behind the business that I wanted to start was not 60% of the time I wanted to be in a place where there was a lot of retreat centers to be able to offer to retreat centers. They like to pamper themselves, guests like to come in and pamper themselves, and then take that money for the other half of the year, move it over to move around. So I was traveling as much as I was traveling. I wanted to be a conduit of the device and bring it to places that there was high cases of Lyme disease and help them without money being a factor because that would be funded by the work that I would do with retreat centers. Unfortunately, as soon as I got to Bali, 9 days later, there was the lockdown. So that plan did not fall through as it should have. Um, so I started working with private clients and it's been going quite well. And now I'm working mainly remotely with remote sessions.
So
Excuse me.
for 3.5 years, you've been sort of in Bali and or working with the machine in person, and that's it's awesome. And congrats on curing Lyme disease. First off, I know I threw in a
Thank you.
bunch of questions, bunch of answers. That's it's awesome. But physically, I understood one of the devices. I mean, how do you make it work remotely? I mean, are there electrodes how how does it work normally in person, like physically? If you could just walk us through that too. I imagine there are other
Absolutely.
yeah, and then how you
So
somehow figured out how to do it remotely and what that process was like. I'll repeat those questions.
yeah,
So,
it's actually it's an interesting process that I went through to be honest with you. So first and foremost, when you are here in person with the device, the client lays down and it's a Tesla coil, it's the copper coil, and it creates a vortex of energy. And that vortex then eventually turns into a toroidal field. And even the body has a toroidal field, obviously. Every organ has its own toroidal field. And nothing happens in the body without an electromagnetic charge. So not even a breath, not a thought, nothing. Like every single thing is backed by an electromagnetic charge. So usually the first experience people have is that they go into a very deep state of relaxation, almost like a dream-like state, like a trance where you can sense what's going on around you, but you're not engaging. A lot of people compare it to a deep state of shavasana. Some people fall asleep. The reason behind this is like, again, if we refer back to our bodies being like batteries, when you're charging your phone and it's on, Wi-Fi is on, Bluetooth is on, and you're watching videos, compared to when it's on airplane mode or off and it's charging. When it's off or on airplane mode, it actually charges a lot faster, and the human body functions the same way. When we're sleeping is when we're charging our batteries. So a lot of people do tend to fall asleep during the session. Some people end up having a lot of thoughts bubble up, and that's again, this is a part of it. There are things that we haven't looked at that need our attention in those moments. Um, the remote session. If I did I answer that part? Oh, right. There should be more.
yeah,
Usually
sorry,
afterwards,
part of it I didn't quite hear. Sorry. So how is the how is the field formed around it again? What
because
is
it's a copper coil. It's a
copper?
copper coil. So, and it's using magnetism, electricity and magnetism.
Right.
So it is pushing the energies around using the magnets. And the coil itself is a conductor. So as it spins and it creates this vortex of energy, that vortex eventually becomes a toroidal field. It goes back into itself.
And
So when the person's laying down with the device, they're actually feeling. A lot of people tend to feel like how they feel like a charge in their cells. They actually, it's almost like a physical, tangible feeling. Um,
and
the thing that I've noticed with a lot of clients is that they sleep a lot better that night, and after the session itself, they come out feeling very charged, not like wired drinking coffee, but stronger in the body, feeling like they have more energy to do things. And this is again goes back to us charging the cells. Um, it would did I hit the
yeah,
nail?
sorry, maybe I'm just being slow or I guess and I have
Ask away.
so I guess how big is the device? Where is it relative to the people
It's
lying down?
it's fairly large. It's about 40 pounds. It's a little bigger than a carry-on,
Yeah.
slightly bigger than a carry-on. And then the device actually has one coil inside of it that converts the frequencies from sound frequency over to electromagnetic frequencies. And then it sends it through a cord into the copper coil, and that coil is what the person lays down with. Um, I can actually show it to
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Thank you. It's just lying around. Cool. Perfect.
you. Luckily, it's close by. Was there another question while I make
Um,
it presentable to show?
yeah, sure. I guess in terms of your initial Lyme protocol, it didn't use bioresonance or PMF. It
No,
was just a really strict.
no.
What was the protocol? I'm curious.
It's a little intense. We can go through in a second.
Sure.
So this is the coil itself.
Okay.
It's wrapped in a specific type of tape, but the coil, the copper is inside of here. And this is the cord that leads to the device. Um,
And does my head?
the reason why this was fascinating to me was because of the fact that I had seen how it can cure Lyme disease and how it was actually designed for it. Because apparently the founders of the device created it specifically for themselves, first and foremost, because the husband and one of their daughters had Lyme disease. This is my understanding of their story. So that's why it was very interesting to me. The protocols that again, they came to me intuitively. I went on all fruits just because when I was sleeping 20 to 22 hours a day, standing there and cooking was not an option. So fruits offer us quick energy, and I was getting the nutrients that I needed to some degree. And it's also a nice way of detoxing the system. It's easy on the system so that you get boosts of energy without having to invest too much energy into digesting. Um, I'm trying to remember your next question.
No, we're going
All
back.
right, the second that was one protocol. The second one, and I did most of these at the exact same time. The second one was an herbal organ to organ detox. I had a lot of time on my hands and I knew quite a bit about herbs and the human body. So I started to research as well when I was awake. I would research which herbs are correlated to helping different organs and how to eliminate, because Lyme is a progressive illness and it needs to be eradicated progressively as well because it goes into hiding. That's why when people are given antibiotics, the bacteria goes into hiding and then comes back full force, just like most illnesses. The third protocol was I actually made my own CBD oil, but not CBD. It was a mixture of somewhere in between CBD oil and RSO, Rick Simpson oil. So the cannabinoids were actually quite helpful. And then the fourth one is the kicker actually, and I'm not a big advocate of it the way people are practicing it now. However, everything is a tool and everything can be beneficial to us if it's done properly. But the fourth method was urine therapy. It was reintroducing the urine back into the system as a form of lab work to remind my body what it was actually lacking in, or if it was deficient in something, or if it had an excess amount, if there was any kind of bacteria, it goes into detox mode. So it wasn't like drinking pints of urine, but there's methods of doing it. I Most of what I did was just based on intuition and something that I actually remind my clients of. No matter how well versed I am in this, no matter how experienced I am with the device and the therapy itself, the most important thing is that they're the driver. Their intuition is the leading factor in how we do this therapy and the programs that we choose. Because at the end of the day, no matter how much I know, nobody knows your body like you do. I don't like the term healer because I'd rather be called a facilitator because I'm not there with the person if they have kidney failure. I'm not there if they're in bed with fever, aches, and pain. They are. They're actually healing their own bodies and going through that healing journey themselves. We just are lucky enough to have people that are able to guide us and help hold our hand when it becomes a little difficult. So the programs that we choose, it's always that the client tells me what they're dealing with, and then I offer them several programs, and then we let their intuition be the guiding force.
That's awesome. And I have so many questions about urine therapy. I had a friend who just discussed it recently at Family Friends years ago. But I guess we'll come back to that. I guess for now, if you
Mhm.
could tell me, so what are the options in terms of the kinds of services you would offer both at the
Um,
resorts and also for remote listeners, so someone listening who wants to kind of
so
get
I can start off maybe by telling you about the remote session.
sure,
Should I?
yeah,
So how I discovered the remote session is actually quite fascinating. So I have a friend who's worked with this device for almost 10 years. He was one of the very first people to get his hands on it. Very well versed with it. older gentleman who kept on telling me from day one, you can do this remotely, you can do this remotely. And I was like, look, I'm all about the woo woo to some degree, but I feel like everything I need to do has to come from a place of integrity. I don't, this is why it took me a year and a half to choose which device I wanted to work with. It ended up being the first one that I chose to begin with, but I wanted to run through the other options. Again, because the most important thing for me is that it's not some gimmicky thing. It's not some trendy, cool, hey, frequency and vibration, and let's just use words that nobody understands, but it sounds flashy and it sounds like it's sprinkled with glitter, but rather out of integrity. And again, for 3.5 years, I basically ignored his advice. And up until I think 7 months ago, 7 months ago, yeah, around 7 months ago, I was on the phone with my mom, and she lives in the US right now. So, and she had been going through like a 2 year depression. It was just incredibly intense with the things that she'd gone through. She had just entered a really terrible marriage. Details aren't necessary, but I was on the phone with her and she was on speaker, and I had my friend next to me who also knows her. And when we hung up, I was just like, she sounds terrible. And she's like, I can hear it. And my first thought was, I just want to give my mom a hug. And I'm able to help so many people in person, but I feel like I can't reach her. And I looked at her and I said, you know what? I'm going to give myself power of attorney because she's my mother after all. So over her energetic healing, I'm going to give myself power of attorney because it's very important to always ask questions. You never want to intrude on the physical body, let alone the energetic aspect of it. Um, so I thought I have nothing to lose. I might as well try and give her a remote session. We'll see how it works. I did because I knew she was that time zone. She was already falling asleep. And the next day I call her and she's different. Her voice is different. I had mentioned to my friend, I was like, I haven't heard my mom laugh in 2 years, or 2.5 years. I just want to hear her laugh again. And I got on the phone with her again. It's on speaker and completely different tone to her voice. And I asked her what's going on. She's like, oh, I slept really well. I don't know, something's different. And I was like, okay. 2, 3 days later, I gave her her second session. Still, no, mom's the word. She had no idea. And I talked to her again. Short story from a very long version of it. Within a week from the very first session that I gave her remotely, she got a lawyer, filed for divorce, moved from Florida to California, completely shifted her whole life around. And from an outside perspective, her life is actually harder now than it was before, but her mood is different. Like when I talked to her, the second time I spoke to her on the phone, she ended up laughing. And I remember my friend looking at me and saying, didn't you just mention? I was like, I know this is the first time in 2.5 years. So again, I was under the impression that this is because it's my mother. I'm connected to her. So this might just be just the same way I used to practice with her. Like I tell her, I'm calling you before I call you. Before I call my mom, I usually think of her. Either she picks up the phone and calls me, or when I call her, the first thing I hear is, oh, I was just thinking about you. And I'm like, I know. I was calling you before I call you, mom. So I thought it was just, the bond between a mother and a daughter. So I went onto Facebook and I made a couple of posts asking people to reach out if there's anything they need correcting within the system, if they're going to work on anything, if they're working through healing process, and that it's at no cost. It's more case studies than anything else. And I had several people reach out to me. Since then, I've done hundreds of remote sessions. I had case studies almost every single day. On average, I'd say 3 to 4 clients a day for months. And it's because I have this logical brain. I'm a Virgo, so it just wants to know why, how. So I had to keep picking at like, how does this function? Because as much as I was seeing results, I wasn't understanding how these results were coming about because it's still, there was like a gap in my understanding between, and I remember my friend that I had told you about earlier, his response to me that really hit home was, well, honey, you know this better than anybody else. What's time and space? And I was like, well, yeah, it's a construct that we give limitations to. So we decide that this is the amount of time or this is the amount of space that can reach, an energy can reach from point A to point B. But now my understanding after all these months of working with it is this: how am I calling you? Through the phone, correct? There is a sender and there's a receiver, and we're using the radio waves that we can't physically touch or see. However, I am calling you and we are able to communicate. So now, if the device is the sender and you are the receiver with all the information that I write about the person, then obviously it is going to pick up on that energy. this is where time and space becomes irrelevant almost. Um, so going back to the case studies, I had, please cut me off if there are any questions in between.
Yeah, no, I
Um,
guess physically, what did you do, or mentally, intention wise, or how did you
yeah,
time the machine? That's the big missing piece, but I'll let you get to it. Sorry,
I'll keep you in suspense. I'll keep you in
yeah,
suspense
it's
for a
good.
little
It's
bit
good. I like
longer.
the edge of my seat. I like it. Thank you.
Good. So basically, what ended up happening was with my mom, for example, I intuitively just asked myself, how can I, what is her energetic blueprint? What is her astrological blueprint? So I wrote down her full name, nicknames included, because there's an energetic connection and a channel between things that we feel like we can identify with, correct? So her date of birth, her place of birth, time of birth, and that's optional if somebody knows it. And then the current location. And from her current location, I pinpoint the longitude and latitude, um, as well as the closest ley line to where she's located at. Just again, I don't know if that is what's like that's what's sending it directly to the person or not, but for me, that felt like it came through intuitively, and I listened to it, and it seems to be the case. Because I feel as though it's actually using a form of geolocation to be able to pinpoint the energy of the person, their energetic blueprint from their birth chart, as well as their physical location. Um, i.e., your phone number. I have to dial in your phone number to be able to call you. And the same thing functions with the birth chart. So going back to the case studies, I had four different groups. I had one group that didn't know anything about what I was doing, had no idea what I worked with, and if they were willing to, I would just ask them to like choose a time and date where we would do this, and they would just relax for about an hour and a half, not doing anything with no electronics around them, and then contact me and let me know how they felt. The second group were those that really wanted to know, well, what is this? What are you doing? I need to know, which I understand and respect because that's their way of giving consent to their energy being um, connected with, for lack of better words. The third group knew about PMF but didn't know much and wanted to know more. And then the fourth group was actually a group of people that I've had as clients, and I offered them free sessions uh, with remote sessions to be able to see, can they differentiate between the remote session and the in-person session? Was there a difference? What did they feel? Because I can't test it on myself. I can test it physically, but I can't do the remote session on myself. I can't turn it on and run to the next house and then just start. Um, so this was critical for me. What I found fascinating was that the very first group that didn't know what I was doing would give me exact experiences that the in-person sessions have had for about 3.5 years of me working with this. I was getting the same answers. I felt a tingling in my body. I one lady told me, she said I was worried that it wouldn't reach me, and then all of a sudden I just felt like I just like somebody turned off the light switch, and I just went into like this like sinking into this deep state of meditation. Another one would tell me again about the whole sleep cycle changing, their energy levels, because every program has a different effect on different people. I always say every single body is different, and that very like your body is different every single day. So it's going to be different based on how you eat, sleep, breathe, stress, all of these things. So it's hard to say that everybody has that exact same experience because we're also working with different frequencies. But along what I noticed was that out of 100 out of 100 is what I received as a result of what they were feeling. They would pinpoint specific things that would come along with specific programs. And this was again blowing my mind. There's still a part of me that's like, is this psychosis? Like, have I just been hallucinating this entire time? Because it's incredibly empowering and fascinating that we can reach each other across the world without having to physically be there to help each other. And electromagnetism is in everything. So why wouldn't it carry through the same way that radio waves do for me to make a phone call to you? So after, again, God knows how many case studies, I decided to take it to the level of offering it as a part of the therapy that I work with. And as I mentioned, I've had phenomenal results. I've had one woman where it's actually mind boggling. One of her sessions, I actually wrote down on the paper because on the paper, beyond those things that makes it personalized for that person, I'll write down the intentions that I have, the programs that we're working with as well, or the collective intentions that we have together for her health, as well as um, the programs. And for her, I wrote, because I could sense that she was having a really stressful time. She had just been in the middle of a move, and I wrote four specific words down extra, and I just wrote, may she be filled with this sense of calm, relaxation, and a feeling of joy and love. Those were the four specific words. And I still have her voice message where she sent me a voice message saying, today felt a little different. I went into this immediate relaxation. However, I woke up feeling like I was just full of love and joy. And I'm immediately, of course, I'm going to send her a screenshot or a picture of the what I wrote down for her. So it's hard for other people listening to this to understand the journey that I've gone through with offering remote sessions. But for me, it has been incredibly empowering. It has been a huge breakthrough, and it's actually something that I discovered Buddhists do all the time. Is they call it blasting. This is my understanding of it, where they do send out energy all around the world from where they are. And this is something that we're all capable of doing. The device, however, is able to hone in on a specific frequency, because a lot of people say, well, I'm sending you love. But then what is love? Because your definition of love and my definition of love are going to be vastly different. What we, I think, define as love is a harmonious state from within that we feel. And that harmonious state is where we actually all want to go return back to. And it's the centered space. So it's hard to say, I'm just going to do the therapy without the device and send love. We're very capable of doing it. It is nothing that I'm doubting whatsoever. However, I wouldn't be able to call it a therapy, and I wouldn't be able to pinpoint exactly what the person's working on to know what frequencies to amplify to help them with that.
Wow.
That
No,
was my
thank you.
monologue.
That's
Please do ask questions.
no, that's amazing. And I forgot to say it earlier, but congrats on helping your mom and all these clients, and the case studies sound
Thank you.
really fascinating and really smart to kind of split them up into those four groups. And it's a good thing you're a Virgo and you have those tendencies, because it is, and that
Yeah.
gives you credence and your clients credence, the skeptics, and it yeah, that's a lot to take. So were you, what about the guy earlier who the gentleman with the machine who was trying to encourage you to do it? Did you reach out to
He's
him? It
still,
sounds like you went through this
yeah,
journey on
I
your
did.
own.
I did. I definitely reached out to him, thanked him for not giving up on me and really talking me through this, and through the mental blockages and belief systems that I had personally. Again, because it was the same thing. I was the one limiting myself. I was the one limiting the therapy itself as well. And it opened up different doors on a personal level. It was exactly what I needed, because I had so many friends and family after traveling for so long, so many people around the world like, oh, I wish you were here so I could get the therapy. It seems to be working well for your client. I just felt so closed in, and I felt quite helpless, because I wanted to be able to help them, but I wasn't able to buy a ticket from Bali to Australia or Bali to like, Sweden to be able to go there and physically help them. This has been vastly different. And luckily, again, 100 out of 100. I was expecting somewhere like 85 out of 100 would have an effect on them. I have had three clients that have had bad, or they were case studies, I should say, that have had very bad experiences with it, because honesty is key for me. And oddly enough, it was because the setting was too high for them. And 3.5 years of working with people in person, I've never had to turn the setting down. The only time I turn the setting down is if it's somebody above 65 or somebody below 14. So for children and seniors or pets, even. And then also if it's a specific, like if we're working with the adrenals, you have to be very careful so that you're not stressing them into activation or actually creating a crash. But excuse me, wow, that coconut. What I noticed was that I had actually three case studies where it was too intense for them remotely, and those were the bad experiences that they had. But still, it was still 100 out of 100 because they felt it, so I knew it was working. It was just that I needed to fine tune the level that we were working on. So I do ask clients when they're signing up, if you are hypersensitive to energies, please let me know and I'll choose a lower setting for you. So there's been definitely a learning curve in this, definitely, because it feels like uncharted territories. I know a lot of people work with remote sessions on an energy level, but I've never heard of, except for that gentleman that I mentioned earlier, working with a device on a remote level. And I'll be honest with you, if I hadn't seen the results, I would still be where I was 3.5 years ago, going, oh, okay, rolling my eyes and saying, sure, buddy. Yeah, that's how it works. Let's just all make some money off of just calling everything remote. Because again, I'm very skeptical of these things. So 7 months in, I still have days where I'm like, this is unbelievable. This is not possible. How is this happening? And I'm like, I have to walk myself through it again. Be like, all right, it's been proven to you. You understand how this works. Calm the logical side of the brain.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. So it sounds like you and the other gentleman, maybe we could do a shout out to him. You're the only two people who really do it. I mean, across the
He
world.
doesn't do it. I think he does it for the clientele, like the client base that he has as is. He said to me last time we spoke that he doesn't do it as often as he works with other things, because he also works with what's the word, the name, not Kenyan water, but there's a slipping my mind completely. But basically, he works with water. He's a phenomenal human being, very, very kind and knowledgeable man named Dan.
Cool. Shout out to Dan.
So shout
Thank
out to him.
you.
Definitely.
um, yeah, there's I guess in terms of so very quickly with the dangers of having it turned up too much. So in person or across the world, is there like what are the potential dangers of having the, the too
So
much?
there are no side effects to PMF therapy. PMF therapy has been around for decades. This isn't anything new. It's even FDA approved for bone cell regeneration, for depression, for several different things, inflammation. Not that I personally trust the FDA, but it has been recognized as a medical device that functions. Um, because it's a non-invasive therapy, there are no symptoms and there have never really been side effects. However, with, as with anything, we need to understand how it functions so that we stay in the parameters of it still being something that's beneficial to the client. So, with that being said, the remote session, I think my understanding, the only thing I've come up with thus far that could explain why it's more intense remotely is because uh, partially I think it was my fault, the programs that I chose for that person. I just I also was in the thought process that this isn't going to reach that person. So the normal setting was the obvious choice. So let's just make sure it reaches them. So that was my definitely on me. The second aspect of it was that one of them was with working with the adrenals, and I wasn't aware that they actually had adrenal crashes. So that became something else that made me shift what I asked on the website when they are choosing. It's not my own website, sorry, the calendar website, when the calendar app, when they're booking, there's several questions that's asked of them. One of them being the normal setting or the lower setting, and then also to please give me as much details about their symptoms as possible. Um, I also do offer a 15-minute to 20-minute, 30 minutes, however long it may take, free consultation, because it's more important for me to invest my time in knowing what the person's dealing with than hi, bye, we're done. Um, I feel like that's human interaction and contact and understanding each other is a huge part of understanding what somebody else's journey is, what their healing journey is. And as much as the frequencies are isolated and pinpointed and are exact, it's human error is still human error. And if we don't connect with the people that we're trying to help, then it's very egotistical and egocentric. Yeah. Back to your question. If I remember what you just asked me five
No, no,
seconds ago. I'm also
you're
distracted by my neighbor.
oh, I can hear that. It's thankfully no.
Okay,
You
good.
answered it that they don't seem to be, or there are no side effects. It's FDA approved, and that
Um,
the only The
Yeah.
odd exception was because it was long distance, you tuned it up, and you have to be careful with adrenal, right? So I guess the other
Yeah. So they were my fault. They were
yeah,
like, that was all on me, but that's part of the case
three out
study
of
is to,
100 odd, and they didn't have it was a crash, but they, it was just short term effect, and they recovered, and they're fine now.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, of course, of course. It's just that it helps me to understand it better too, because this is part of the case study is learning how it can go wrong, where it can go wrong, if it's actually working. All of these things come along with it.
And so I guess in terms of the range of services or the range of diseases that people come to you with, you mentioned a few, but what can it not do? I guess is a better question. Or
I'm still trying to figure that out, to be honest.
yeah.
It can't give you a massage. It gives you an energetic massage. It gives your cells an energetic massage. But it's actually quite fascinating because as I always try to remind my clients, everything is so interrelated. So if we're working with, for example, a specific emotion that someone's dealing with, those emotions are residing and stored in different organs. So each session comes with two programs. So if somebody's dealing with a lot of emotional anguish, uh, then I would, again, based on the person also, I would recommend working with the liver. There's a program for suppressed emotions. There's a program for positivity, which helps reconnect or activate the transmitter chemicals in the brain. There is a program for higher self. There are specific programs that would be beneficial for the client. And then from there, they choose the two that speaks most, like is more alive for them. And that from there, you're able to, again, it's not like it's not just directed at the organ. It's not just esoteric thing. It really hones in on everything because we are again working with the etheric body, we're working with the pain body, we're working with the physical body, we're working with the emotional body. Everything is so incredibly interrelated. I Yeah, I don't know if I answered your question, but
No, you did more. Thank you. That was it's good. So in terms of your understanding of those bodies, or I guess also I wanted to talk about how it helps you access your higher self, because that's and can we kind of skip some spiritual work and use this machine, or how does that work? Like,
it's
or
funny that we bring it up because that was the one that I tried on myself. Well, I didn't try it for the first time, but it's the one that I actually chose for today, the program that I used this morning. Um, for example, the grounding program and the higher self focus a lot on first using the Schumann resonance to ground the body and excess energies that we have. And then it goes into activating the pituitary and the pineal gland so that we are actually able to produce more DMT. This is, I don't know how much your viewers know about DMT and understanding the production of it through the glands. Um, I think it's not a matter of, because somebody told me, oh, a friend of mine came into you and she was saying that she had like almost like mushroom like experience from the higher self. And this is what she was trying to achieve. And I told her, I'm just like, this isn't going to be the same for every single person. This isn't literally a, a cookie cutter, like, like here's one for you, here's one for you, here's one for you. You're going to have the experience that you're meant to be having. So it uses programs that help support each other. And that's what I was going to say earlier when I actually digressed a little bit. So instead of just coming in, and this is my main reason for liking this program as much as I do, instead of just coming in and amplifying the frequency of the liver and just targeting the liver over and over again, this can be taxing for it, especially if it's off its natural frequency. So what it does is it focuses on, like the liver program focuses on the liver. However, it also has, it pulsates between the frequency of the liver and the supporting organs so that the liver isn't just activated and empowered, it's also supported by the other one. This, again, there's specific details that they use to make this device that after a year and a half, I came right back full circle and said, nope, this is the one that I want to work with, none of the other ones. There's a lot of the PMF devices out there are also either low scale where it's just like a mat. And I'm not saying they don't work. They definitely work, but it works a little differently. I feel like it's not as advanced to some degree. And then there's other devices out there which I will gladly throw under the bus like the Healy. Excuse me if I do, but I don't, again, I'd like to work out of integrity. And when a company talks about themselves being PEMF and it's actually sending out microcurrents of static electricity has been tested on rats to show that it's, and we usually test on rats to see how it functions on humans as well. And it's shown to actually stress the organs into activation. When we also know that stress is the leading cause of most illnesses and um, and one of the main reasons why people with, sorry, most cases for death as well. So I like to kind of compare it to if you're sleeping and the objective is to wake you up. I can either come up to you and shake you violently out of your sleep and like alarms going off and stress you into being awake. The objective is the same. I woke you up. Or I come up and I softly and calmly wake you up and bring you back into this physical world. The objective is still the same. I've gained the same result. I've woken you up. But the question is, how will the rest of your day play out from there? And the same thing goes with the healing process. If we're using the electromagnetism of the body to amplify energy back into the cells, it functions the exact same way as slowly waking you up and calmly waking you up. As to where if we're using static electricity, which is not beneficial for the human body, we're not static beings, we're electromagnetic beings, then your healing process might be stressed as well.
Well, that's good to hear. I work with on these energy healing courses, and there are people who look into the energy fields of people who've used the healing machines. I don't really like to talk out against these machines. But I have heard how it's affected people adversely, and the partner is very intuitive and psychic and has worked with energy healing for a number of years, and she too has looked into energy fields and felt that the Healy machine is not served
It's
most.
no,
Yeah, so that's
it's an MLM. It's an MLM and it uses both Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. And for me, it's like if you're using like, again, I don't use any of that. I don't even, I'm not even in the room when the session is taking place because I'd rather have that safe space where there's no interference. It's not even my energy. And the idea is that it's you working with the device. It's you working with your own frequencies that the device helps you like bring you back to. The Healy, I have no problem throwing them under the bus because there's a level of misconception and harm that's taking place because profit over people, right? And it's supposed to be people over profit. So if it's something that functions and it works better than mine, I'm all for it. You will see me bowing down and being grateful that there are other technologies that are helpful. But watching how the Healy um, has actually affected people's health in a negative manner, in a negative way, and as well as how people have fallen for a gimmick, it irks me a lot. It really does.
um, in terms of. So you said the difference is they have electrostatic, and this is more a toroidal field that uses the body's own
It's
energy.
electromagnetic.
It's an electromagnetic field as opposed to electrostatic, is what the. Okay.
Yeah, they use microcurrents of of static electricity. And I mean, it's really important to know because one of the first things when I heard about this device and EMF in general, the first thought I had was EMF. No, we're trying to get away from EMFs. Everything is EMF. Everything has an electromagnetic pulse and a charge. Just like I said, not even a thought can occur within our bodies without an electromagnetic pulse. Now, what we work with is on Hertz level. Hertz is the same as what we have in nature, in our bodies. Anything natural is on the Hertz level, which basically in measurements, it counts one cycle per second or one wave per second, correct? So we have Hertz, we have kilohertz, we have megahertz, and then we have gigahertz. Gigahertz were Wi-Fi and all these lovely little towers, not so little towers that we have everywhere now. They work on a billion, not a million, but a billion waves or cycles per second. This is very unnatural to our state of being. So this also has programs for electrosmog to be able to remove the electrosmog that we have around us. Because when you're facing with frequencies that are unnatural, the body actually goes into reactive mode. So it doesn't know what to do with it. It needs to hone itself back into its natural state. And this is my theory is this is why we have so much illness. We have such a spike in um, how freely can I speak?
As freely as you want.
Okay. So this is where we have the spike in illnesses like quote unquote corona, is because the body is sensing like just like it would if there's a bacteria that enters the system. It's a foreign, it's something foreign that it needs to get rid of because it doesn't belong in the body. The same thing goes for tattoos. When we get inked up, and I'm not judging anybody, I have tattoos, but when we do get inked up, this is a foreign substance that's entered the system, and the body and the immune system will actively and constantly try to get rid of it. So it's actually weakening the immune system because it's consistently for the rest of our lives trying to get this ink out. Whether it's natural ink or not, it's a foreign substance. So now, if you look at it on a frequency level, we are frequency beings, and when when there's amplification of gigahertz frequencies, billions of cycles instead of one per second, then this is going to affect our well-being because the body thinks it's trying to detox something that's not physical within itself. So, I mean, I don't want to get too deep into this, but I haven't heard of a lot of commute being taken place throughout my 39 years of life between China and Italy. However, the pandemic started, the outbreak started in China, and the second one was in Italy. The only correlation between the two was that they erected and activated 10,000 5G towers in Wuhan in October 2019, and they did the same thing a few months later in Italy. But then those were the two places that had this incredible pandemic that took place because we're changing the frequency that our physical bodies are used to. The human body is like, I call it the human cell on an earth body because we all function as little cells on this body. So if we target one of the cells in the system, it's going to obviously affect the other ones. And the same thing goes with humans. But let's hone
Yeah.
it back in. I can get lost in these conversations.
Are there other devices that, I've seen people wear a bunch of different devices. People stick stuff on their phone. They've got sort of necklaces with these the
EMF
devices that you,
protectors.
yeah, EMF protectors. Are there any of those? And also to get back to your machine, what's the brand and what machine do you use? That's, I guess, because you researched them and you came out with and it took you a year and a half, but you came back to the first one, and this was the best one, you said, right? So,
The device that I actually use is called the amp coil, like as an amplifying coil. Um, it's their headquarters are in Northern California.
and and why aren't we seeing more of these devices? If they're, I mean, I know that could get into a whole rabbit hole, but briefly,
Mm, no, no, it's okay. It's okay. But quite briefly, I don't think the technology has been made for us to be able to have it at a level where we can all just be um, using them on a daily basis. Although I can tell you, as somebody who has the device at home, I definitely don't use it on a daily basis. I don't like to use anything on a daily basis that may, in some ways, create dependency. So even with clients coming in, if they're doing an intensive treatment, the most important thing is that we're not doing it every day, that we have breaks in between so that the body has to assimilate what's just what it's gone through and adopt those frequencies back into the cells as opposed to creating a dependency that something external is going to do the work for it. This is again, it's just about empowering the body back into a state of health. As to why we don't have these devices walking around attached to us, probably because that leans more towards transhumanism than the natural state of being. If this device wasn't focused on honing in the frequencies of nature, I wouldn't have been drawn to it. It's also based off of traditional Chinese medicine, where they're able to connect the hollow organs and the solid organs within the program. So when you see some of the programs, you'll have lungs and large intestines. And at first glance, you think, well, what do they have to do with each other? They have no, there's no correlation. But this is again within Chinese medicine. You have the hollow and the solid organs, which is the yin and the yang energy, the masculine and the feminine energy that actually end up helping each other. You have the heart with the small intestine, and so on and so forth. So it's based off of that. It also has a biofeedback voice analyzer, which tests the tonality of your voice to see, it gives you a priority system to see which one of these organs, which one of these bacteria, whatever it is that's most prevalent in your system at the moment or that needs your attention. It's called a list of priorities. It doesn't diagnose. I wouldn't call it a diagnosis even if they did. Because at the end of the day, there's human error, there's machine error, but human empowerment is my number one focus. And I've seen time and time again, people will come in and you can even do the remote session through the phone. You can have them do yeah, I can have the client do the voice test. However, what ends up happening is that it picks up on anything that you're dealing with. If you need to go pee, for example, and you need to use the bathroom, it'll show up as your bladder and kidney need your attention. That's because your bladder and kidney are telling you to go pee. so, and then people start to self-diagnose, and I'm not a big fan of that because the idea isn't to diagnose, look at the symptoms, look at the illness, and this and that. The idea is to go to the root cause of it and help empower the body to eliminate these things without getting too much in the mind of how do we fix this symptom, how do we fix this disease? Because that one disease, again, there's so many layers within our existence that we may think it's this, we may think it's like somebody has liver disease, but at the root cause of it, it could just be that they're not processing their anger and their emotions, and it's being stored in the liver, and then stored in the liver, then the frequency of the liver alters, and then we're again coming back to illness, disease, this, that, and then we can fix the liver, but the root cause is still the anger that they're not processing.
But most clients, I mean, I guess you have clients that come across both for anger issues and liver, and if they're not sure, then they use the voice. Is that
No, I tend not to use the voice analysis. They will tell me what they're dealing with. And then from there, when I give them the list of options, their intuition hones in on what they need. So I can listen to them. I can pick up on the fact that they're actually dealing with suppressed emotions and let's say past traumas and this and that, but they're just focused on the liver. Then when I offer suppressed emotion program as one of the options, they intuitively choose it, even though they're not seeing the connection at times. Their intuition will speak up and be like, maybe I want to do a suppressed emotion. The most common programs that people ask for are pain relief, which has frequencies associated with muscle, fascia, ligaments, joints, tendons, um, como se dice, circulation, and general pain infection. And then you have other people that come in mainly for the hormones. So balancing of the hormones, hormone harmony is the program. I usually couple that with an organ tune-up. So we're activating the organs as well as the balancing the hormones. Um, so it all depends. It all depends on what they're working with.
oh, it's a lot to take in, I guess.
It's a lot of information, but it's very
Yeah,
fascinating. I mean, but I'm biased.
and we can get more information on your website and do like a full research on.
Well, I actually don't have a website just yet. I've been a little
Yep.
lazy when it comes to that. My main platform has been Instagram for when it comes to putting up testimonials and information, and I try to keep it as informative as possible.
Is there a good source? What is your preferred source of like resource for PMF information or bioresonance information? Is there um, like
I I'm a I
vendors?
mean I'm old school as I mentioned to you, so for me research matters. Like we never went into Google and just got a link and
Right.
girl, you're around my age. We didn't just go in and just Google it. We went in, grabbed the encyclopedias, just like making a dish, we grabbed a bunch of different ingredients, different bits of information,
Right.
had a well-rounded understanding of it, and then could relay the message over and the information over to the next person. So I have been making, like since I started making memes, informative memes, which is something that I'm actually working on changing on my Instagram page because it's 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 an overload for a lot of people. So I have to kind of minimize it and put it in ways where it does seep in a little at a time. And I think that's my fault because I've researched it for so long and I've worked with it for so long. I'm like, here's all the information. And the person's like, holy geez, this weighs a lot. So I have to learn to like little at a time because just because I've studied it and researched it for so long doesn't mean somebody just getting the information is going to pick up on it like that.
I have so many
Within,
more
yeah.
questions to ask you, but I know it's been forever on the chat too. But in terms of how it's helped your intuition and you came up with the protocol or the system for operating it remotely, primarily through your intuition, along with buddy Dan, who we mentioned earlier. But how, thank you, Dan. But
Thank you, Dan.
how has this machine improved your intuition? Or how's your intuition or connection to spirituality separate from the machine, or even influenced by the machine? Sort of, what's that journey look like? I guess is
Um, that's an interesting one. That's an interesting one because when I came to Bali, I mean, I've gone through the works. I've been knee deep in the matrix, club girl, like going out partying, high heels, done all of that. Then I went fully into just immersing myself in nature, like full on hippie mode. Coming to Bali, I wanted some kind of a balance, and I was seeking like proper community that wanted to go deeper through the veil of reality, as opposed to just the hippy tippy or the matrix. Yeah, I wanted something with substance, and I wanted real. I wanted it to be more tangible. And unfortunately, I came to the epicenter of woo woo. Like, all about the woo. And I love Bali, don't get me wrong. But I feel as though, like any other vortex, it pulls and pushes. So it pulls a lot of different people in, and a lot of people come here based off of eat, pray, love, and I come here to heal. And it's like, if you don't, it's not like you need to go focus on what you feel, but if you're not even remotely aware of what you want to feel, then you're just going to fall for different things because you're not standing for something. And this actually put me in a journey of pushing spirituality further away from me. It didn't resonate, but I also, again, I wanted to work from a place of integrity. I wanted a community that was built off of integrity and authenticity, instead of, hey, everybody come to me for this or come to me for that. So I kind of pulled myself out and away from it, and it did help me become more focused on the logical aspect of it. And at one point in time, a friend of mine said something that's going to stick with me forever, hopefully. And it was one of the nicest compliments I've ever received. And it was not through any kind of effort. But she said something along the lines of, I was able to bring logic into magic. And my understanding of magic is that it is basically the metaphysical world that we can't understand fully because we're just such infants in our awakening. As a collective, we're infants. So to us, anything that's like not 3D and easily understandable, then it must be just woo woo or magic, or we give different labels to something that is ever present without us being able to feel it or see it, but we're able to feel it. And when we tap into that feeling more, we're able to see the magic and use logic as the bridge between where we are and where we always have been but can't see. So it's brought a deeper sense of um, understanding my own spirit, I'd like to say, as opposed to spirit rituals, spiritual. So it's definitely it's helped me ground more of what I want to bring into this world and anchor it down here, if that answers it.
no, that's awesome. That's a journey, and
Thank you.
um, yeah, I feel like we've gone past the time. I know I promised John to keep it short for the audiences, but there was just a lot of fascinating stuff and stuff that I
Thank
had to re-ask too. Um, and it is fairly late here, but the last few questions, I guess normally I do a rapid fire and ask a bunch of questions about a lot of woo because I do love my woo, and
I love the woo too.
but um, but yeah, it sounds like in terms of your own, I guess, real quick, in terms of your own personal practices, or just after say or an integration after using, getting a session with with the machine, and with the PEMF therapy. Um, is there an integration protocol, or are there practices that have helped you along with the machine in your own personal journey, whether it's meditation, breath work, chanting, singing, dancing, what have you?
Yes. So one of the things that I always try to remind people is number one is stay hydrated, extra hydrated. Um, for me, it's another thing that I'm actually working on making videos to pass out to the clients as well is There's specific practices within Qigong, using your vocal cords as well as your physical body and the breath to be able to actually relieve pressure off of the main organs in the body. And this is somewhat um, a replica of how PMF functions. You're using the vibrations of your own voice and you're bringing your body, you're reconnecting with the body even more. So I'm actually going to be um, making these short little videos for people once they do sign up and they do have a session, to be able to offer that to them, excuse me, so that they continue their practice at home, even if they choose not to come to me. Coming back to me, this can be something that they use on a, excuse me, on a daily basis or whenever needed, and also pass the information along to other people so that other people also learn how to work within their bodies.
It's awesome. It sounds like look forward to those videos as well. And in terms of the sessions, you mentioned a lot of your clients just come in once anyway, because
I well, some people come in, they just have like a one-time thing. Right now, I do have a promotion where the first session that you buy, and my prices are right now limited prices. They're actually very low compared to most people's. But I want to offer them a second session so that they really feel the effects of it. So a usual treatment is between 3 to 6 sessions, and each session has 2 programs. Right now, what I'm doing is when they buy their first session, the second one is for free.
oh,
So that way they have the momentum that's kick-started for them to be able to feel the difference, have the body actually start going into that self-healing process a lot faster. Uh, there have been cases where woman left me a testimonial where when she was 5 years old, she had issues with her stomach, like from hernias, constipation to IBS, you name it. And literally after one session, she still calls me once in a while, goes, "Hey, I go to the bathroom 3 times a day." And I'm like, "I'm so happy for you." And like one session was enough for her. And I do also want to remind the viewers that even if we're honing in on the frequency of the liver, this doesn't mean that that's the only part of the body that's affected. The entire system is affected. All the cells in the body are affected. We're just altering the frequency of that specific organ that we're working with, or the illness, or whatever it is that we're working with. So it's not like if you have something, an ache in the body, and you get a program, that it's not going to affect the ache. It's actually going to be beneficial for the ache as well.
awesome. No, I'd love to sign up. And is there a deadline? I hope we get these podcasts out quick, and I imagine we'll have to do some editing. But yeah, in terms of a deadline for these prices, it's May or mid-May 2023. How long can we get the deal?
Right now, I haven't had a specific date set in mind. Like I haven't set it in stone, I should say, but the date that I do have in mind is early June. And even if let's say this comes out later on, as long as they book before June, early mid June, they can get these sessions. So if they can get that same deal for that, their very first program is full price, and then the second one, or it's limited, still limited time pricing, and then they get the second one for free. So they can sign up like the day before, but then book it for like a month ahead of time, and that's also fine. So it's yeah, I kind of, if it were up to me, I'd do this for free. You know what I mean? If it were up to me, I just want everybody to be able to make like benefit from this. However, it's still a form of work.
Yeah,
Um, so yeah, I think that, and then August is the deadline for the limited time pricing, and then the prices will go up by a small percentage.
awesome. We've gone way over time, but I'll love to end with these three questions. I'm skipping a bunch, but I could I
Mhm.
could chat with you forever. But it is very late
Oh,
in
thanks,
Toronto
bud.
as well. I need to get going. But yeah,
Understandable.
what makes Lala the happiest in any given day? What makes
What
like
makes me the happiest?
yeah, just end on a note.
It's a very interesting question. It's what I've said to, and I've discovered this recently, not discovered it, but was reminded of it recently throughout my own life. What I've always said to the students that I've worked with, the children that I've worked with, is that we all have a superpower that we share. And that superpower is our smile. The electricity that emanates from our bodies when we have a smile on our face, we can physically and in real time see how contagious it is. Because if you're walking and somebody else walks past you and you smile, instantly that person has been electrified almost with that energy. And as they walk, they're going to pass it on to the next person that they encounter. And it just spreads like electricity, like wildfire. Um, what makes my heart sing? Smiling.
God
Being
bless.
able to just share a smile with another human being, eye contact, especially strangers, because that then there's no attachment behind it.
Mm, that's awesome. And
That makes me
hear the teacher of children coming through and shining through,
happy.
even though you don't
Yeah.
relate to being a healer. I mean, it's healing work. That's and
Thank you.
second last question before we go. Was there what are your most consistent or persistent thoughts? What gets the most airtime in Lala's brain?
Mhm. That's actually a work in progress. If I can be super honest. The state of the world has a tendency to boggle me. Sorry. The state of the world has a tendency to boggle me down a little bit at times. And I can find myself getting wrapped up in the doom and gloom. But again, working with cells and energy and frequencies has also taught me that, again, as that human cell on this earth body, what I carry within myself passes on to other people, whether words are involved or not, energy is felt. And this is the whole point of resonance, right? Because when you walk into a room, if you're in a bad mood, other people may pick up on it and actually adopt that energy and vice versa. And now this isn't to say good vibes only. Absolutely not. We can't look at a rainbow and say we just choose these three colors and the rest can go. It's a spectrum of emotions and experiences of life. Um, but finding our center and keeping ourselves in that balanced state where we can be informed of what's going on, but not let it dictate how we feel. I think that's the most important thing. And in this new cage movement, I call it a new cage movement because sometimes it just puts people back in another cage of their mind. Um, there's a lot of empathy is played on a lot. Being an empath, being an empath, being an empath. We don't need to share each other's pain necessarily. We can understand each other, but we don't need to feel each other's pain. Everybody is empathetic. There is no such thing as one person or two people or a group of people being an empath. We all have empathetic tendencies, just like we also all have narcissistic tendencies. It depends on how much we want to feed them. I feel as though having this, again, that being a predominant thought of what's going on in the world, feeling for other people and the misery and this and that, has a tendency to feed that empathetic side in a way where we're actually just expanding that energy more and more and recreating it more and more. We can understand what other people are going through, what the state of the world is like, but also empower ourselves and each other into solution based thought processes. That doesn't have to be, I will feel your pain. It will be, let's make this world a better place for us to all feel in. Um, so I feel like it's like we can either drown with each other or offer life raft. I don't know if that answers your question,
What
but
do you
yeah,
think
that's
about
that's
the
what's.
most? I got a peek into your brain though, so that was fun. Um, but yeah, so
But
I
yeah,
hear the activism and the desire to work, make the world a better place. I guess that's what plays across Spain. But very last question, we are way out of time, but thank you so much for your time and your
thank you
insight.
for
It's
having me.
fascinating. Last thing before you go, do you have a final message to the listeners, to myself, to humanity at large? No pressure.
No pressure at all. I feel like it's a beauty pageant.
World
I
peace.
want to end
World
war.
peace.
Yeah, I want to end world hunger, and so yeah, I want world peace. Um, I think it circles back to what we just spoke about to some degree. Is I try to remind myself that every single cell in the body has the ability to create healthier cells, and the same goes for humans. Um, kindness is very underrated. Um, connection It doesn't have to be on a superficial level. It doesn't have to be on a need, I need something or opportunistic level, but just paying it forward. Pay it forward. Every little thing that's possible, whatever you're capable of, whatever, with whatever you have, whatever you can do. And it doesn't mean go murder yourself and give away all the money you have, but again, something as simple as a smile can change somebody's life drastically. They might have not seen a smile or received a smile or eye contact for months traveling around or being alone, going through depression, but that smile, you may not see the effects of it, but it's the heart's connecting. It's the resonance of the heart amplifying, and it's shown in the physical form of the face, but it's felt.
Awesome. Hey, thanks. Thank you so much for your wise words and your knowledge, your wonderful experiences. There's so much we didn't cover. Your activism, your in therapy, the state of the world, and a bunch of woo too, which I normally like to cover. But it's
Heaps of
been
love.
a pleasure. It's been
Likewise.
thank you so much, and
Likewise. Thank you so much for having me. It's been an honor.
uh,
Thank you.
me too. Yes.